So this next talk, it's probably going to be one of my favorites, and I'm a bit biased because I am an investing reporter. So this topic is a big one for me. Specifically, it's a VC's guide to the future of investing in NFTs, and that's with Latif Peracha, and he's the general partner at M13. So it's all yours.
Thanks. Hey guys, great to be here. I'm not used to doing 10-minute monologues, so bear with me here. I'm going to let you into at least my mind as I think about the future of NFTs. Actually, did I leave my clicker back there? Sorry, guys. Thanks. Just a minute on my fund. We're a $400 million fund. We're generalists between LA and New York. So we don't cover crypto and Web3 exclusively, but it's a big part of what we do. About a third of our fund is invested in the space, and we are incredibly bullish about the future. So very simple slide here. I think about value in two ways, utility and speculation. And as a big believer in the market, I think we can all admit that the vast majority of the crypto market over the last decade has been about speculation. And in the Web 2 world, we think about it in tangible and intangible assets. And here, I think it's the same principle, utility and speculation. And we have to flip the paradigm. So we are much more about the utility, and momentum and speculation will always play a part in value creation. But I don't think speculation can last forever. And in a world where interest rates are not low and free money isn't everywhere, this is really, really critical for us to be a thriving industry. This is just the slide I had to put up that showed NFTs and the growth of NFTs. This is specifically Ethereum NFT traders, but obviously a steady increase. If you actually looked at this more closely, you would have seen 21 was obviously a massive year. 22 was a huge dip, and we're back slowly but surely in 23. But the big breakthrough are these guys on the right side of the page, and it's been tremendous to have these communities really break out. But ultimately, I think the utility there is still quite limited, and we have to get beyond PFPs in order for us to really be a thriving industry. And so here are 4 examples of companies that are in our portfolio that we think are interesting applications of NFTs. And so the first one is STEPN, which a few of you probably have heard of, which was the gaming fitness app, which was truly unlocked with the purchase of an NFT. There was clearly a financial element to that one as well, but really you couldn't really truly appreciate the game without having the NFT. So that was really interesting. We think gaming are going to be huge here going forward. We're in a company called Unblocked, which is providing, it's got a bunch of really great brands and artists who offer access to their fans through NFTs, tickets, merch, etc. That's a pretty clearly understood use case, but one we like. I'm on a board of a company called Nori, which is bringing carbon removal credits on chain, and that to us is a really novel application of NFTs. So the first way they really trap the carbon is in soils. So once the carbon is trapped in these farms in Nebraska and verified, an NFT is issued, the carbon is retired, and then a buyer buys that, and they get the NFT transferred to them. So on that NFT, which is really kind of a certification, you can see down to the farm where that carbon is trapped, and so that's a really interesting application. And then finally, we're investors in a company in Toronto called 10Key Labs, which is bringing financial assets on chain. You can think of it like a Carta, but on chain. And the idea is you can package up, private stocks and all the governance that goes along with those private stocks into an NFT and trade that and sell that very seamlessly to another user. Early days on that one, but we think that kind of application around financial assets is really interesting. A couple other examples here. Centrifuge is SMB lending protocol that is really trying to solve a big issue in SMB lending, which is really low default rates, but it's really hard to get a loan. there they tokenize the off-chain assets through an NFT, and then that NFT can be used to earn yield or to take off a loan versus the value of that NFT. So we think that's really interesting. And then in commerce, Nike's an obvious one, but what's cool about Nike is they actually, despite being one of the biggest brands in the world, are really grassroots. They've got communities all over the world. They've been doing drops and limited edition merch forever, and so it's really kind of natural for Nike. We've seen they've launched their swoosh application with Polygon, and I think they're going to be hugely successful. They also bought Artifact, but I don't think, and we'll get to this in a second, I don't think you know big brands are going to necessarily succeed in Web3, except if there's an actual, like, very natural, kind of gravitational pull as we have with Nike. A couple more slides here, and we'll be wrapped up. One of the things we think about a lot at the firm is, like, the term NFTs is honestly a little bit tarnished in our opinion, because it represents to us, represents speculation, represents all the shilling that happened, and that's fun and good, but that's not what's going to truly make an impact. And so we noticed Reddit did their collectible avatars, and they went out of their way to not discuss it as an NFT, despite the fact it was an NFT. And we think that's interesting, because that really puts the onus on the application, on the utility of it. And so that's something we think about. How do we just think about the NFT as the technology and what that can enable versus the kind of the end state, because that feels to us like it's been tarnished and been very kind of focused on monetary value, not about utility. And then I'm going to wrap up with this, which is, here's some things we've been thinking about a lot as a VC and as a firm. Web 2, the most powerful platforms of Web 2 were because they had amazing network effects, and they had amazing network effects because they were walled gardens, and we all know the story around that. In Web 3, what was interesting is, in 21, if you saw OpenSea, you probably thought OpenSea was going to be the most, I guess, legendary company of our generation, and they are a great company, don't get me wrong, but we've seen them have their moment. We've seen Magic Eden have its moment. We've seen Blur now in their moment. I don't know who's next, but as an investor, that makes me pretty scared of investing in that type of a business, because ultimately, if everything's interoperable, and that's great, it just doesn't mean that you can invest in, I think, in these types of ways. And so I don't know if you've seen what Rarable's been doing, but they've pivoted into like a first-party marketplace where primary and secondary sales can be done by the brand, and then on the back end, they provide a lot of liquidity with other brands on the platform so that you get enough liquidity into the marketplace. That feels to me like a pretty compelling view of the future. Second, on native versus existing IP, I mentioned Nike. That's a great example of massive existing IP, but I think that's limited in terms of use cases. Bored Apes are probably the best example of native IP that's really interesting, because the end user gets the IP for that ape, and we've seen really cool examples of people opening up restaurants and other things based on that trademark. And to me, that's really, really fascinating, to go from digital to physical, not other way around. And also, as I got young kids at home, like, their generation is gonna grow up with these native brands, and I think that's a much more interesting place to think about investing. Who's building the next Disney in Web3 is really fascinating. And then lastly, royalties have been a big topic tied to the marketplaces. I've got a lot of friends who are in the arts, and the idea that you could have a piece of the resale of a piece of art in perpetuity, to me, was such a profound application of NFTs. But we've kind of discovered that actually that's not enforceable through the code and through the smart contract, which is a bit of a bummer. But we're constantly looking for people that are trying to reinvent that and trying to find ways that we can actually get to a place where you can get back to that state, which I think is incredibly important for creators and for the arts, and for society at large. So that's it. Thank you for your time. If you're building in NFTs, come find me. It's a great time to be doing that. The real believers are here, and we appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.